Hello students, we're going to do another Think Aloud here. Again, I'm going to deal with pretty much the first page and a half of 1984, Chapter 4. That's where we are. We left off with some humor, too. It was very interesting, but the way that it's written, it's not very humorous. It's very serious, but we left off where Winston was finally able to touch his toes for the first time, almost in an act of defiance, too. It's like he's starting to grow some guts and start to be a little bit more brave and courageous. We still don't know everything that we want to know about him, but let's continue on in Chapter 4 of 1984. With the deep, unconscious sigh, which not even the nearness of the telescreen could prevent him from uttering when his day's work started, Winston pulled the speakwrite towards him, blew the dust from its mouthpiece, and put on his spectacles. So what's interesting here is it kind of starts off like a regular day here. So I'm going to go ahead and try this out. Starts off like a regular day. Again, my program looks a little different than yours because I'm using an add-on called Kami. I'm not using the PDF annotator this time. But I am going to highlight that. I'm going to say it starts off like a normal day, and yet there's some very abnormal things happening here. We get it. He doesn't want to be there. Nothing new there. We don't always want to do what we need to as well. We don't always want to go to school or work. He kind of feels that. But the weirdness of this is this speakwrite, which is pretty interesting because we're going to be introduced to a lot of new technological tools that Orwell is placing into his character's hands. But what's interesting is this is not new to us anymore. In the time that Orwell was writing, it was probably new, but just like it is, a dictation. Then he unrolled and clipped together 4 small cylinders of paper which had already flopped out of the pneumatic tube on the right-hand side of his desk. In the walls of the cubicle there were 3 orifices. To the right of the speakwrite, a small pneumatic tube for written messages, to the left a larger one for newspapers, and in the side wall, within easy reach of Winston's arm, a large oblong slit protected by a wire grating. This last was for the disposal of waste paper. Similar slits existed in thousands or tens of thousands throughout the building, not only in every room, but at short intervals in every corridor. For some reason, they were nicknamed memory holes. So clearly the author is telling us a lot about the slits where waste paper goes. And as you can see, he gives a lot of description right around here in the beginning part of the paragraph. But then he adds some commentary. So I'm actually going to mark up and highlight that commentary right there. For some reason, they were nicknamed memory holes, right? I'm going to underline that right there because he's telling us that he wants us to pay attention to this. We don't know why yet, but if you spend however many sentences this is, at least 3 or 4 in the beginning of a paragraph, in the front of a chapter, then you know that it's for a reason. And so this is good practice with reading too. You have a lot of descriptions. The descriptions in and of themselves probably don't mean much, right? It's painting an image in the reader's mind, as we like to say. But then this sentence, it's giving meaning to it. Here's the descriptions. Here's the abstract thought that he wants us to connect to. So then we read on. When one knew that any document was due for destruction, or even when one saw a scrap of waste paper lying about, it was an automatic action to lift the flap of the nearest memory hole and drop it in, whereupon it would be whirled away on a current of warm air to the enormous furnaces which were hidden somewhere in the recesses of the building. So I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know why it keeps popping that up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight that in red, because this to me is very intriguing, because these scraps of paper, the waste paper, all needs to be thrown out, and there's a lot of places to do it. At every cubicle, at every, in between the cubicles, it seems to be everywhere. So there's a lot of waste paper, and then it seems excessive, right? Where they have to throw out this paper, it's whirled away to a furnace where it's all burned. And then they also nickname it memory holes. So it's something about burning away of memories. It's kind of sad. We don't exactly know why this is important, but we know that already in this society, the government likes to control the information stream. So I'd imagine that all this information that's being written down and that there's waste paper, people could potentially grab that and learn something. But now the government's also like, nope, here's our policy. You have to constantly be not just shredding these papers, not just crumbling them up and throwing them in a recycling bin, but no, it has to go into this little slit. It's the memory hole. It's where the waste paper goes, and then it travels down to a furnace. So authors spending a lot of time talking about it. Pretty important. Winston examined the 4 slips of paper which he had unrolled. Each contained a message of only 1 or 2 lines in the abbreviated jargon, not actually newspeak, but consisting largely of newspeak words, which was used in the ministry for internal purposes. They ran, Times 17384 BB speech malreported, Africa rectify. Times 191283 forecast 3YP, fourth quarter 83 misprints verify current issue. So already I know, without even having to read the tedious amount of information here, this stuff is the actual things that are needing to be fixed. It's probably a specific location, right? As it even said, speech malreported Africa rectify. So we know what speech is. Malreported means something was falsely reported in Africa and it needs fixing. This fourth quarter, somebody predicted maybe that there'd be misprints in some type of current issue and it needs to be rectified and changed. Mini plenty, mal-quoted chocolate, rectify. So again, it seems like it's a lot of things to do with other ministries. Reporting BB day order, double plasungud, refs, unpersons, rewrite, full wise, upsub, anti-filing. So again, this is a newspeak, so not all of it's going to make sense to us, but clearly there's things that are not going well that need changing. With a faint feeling of satisfaction, Winston laid the 4th message aside. It was an intricate and responsible job and had better be dealt with last. The other 3 were routine matters. I don't like that it does that. The other 3 were routine matters, though the second one would probably mean some tedious wading through lists of figures. So he's saying that these first 3 is normal. It happens on a consistent basis. It's routine. But to him, this last one is abnormal and he wants to deal with it last. So that's pretty interesting. I think it's important to note because now we know that we have to find out why he feels this way about this last report, about this day order, also the one that's written the most weird, if that's even a phrase. Winston dialed back numbers on the telescreen and called for appropriate issues of The Times, which slid out of the pneumatic tube after only a few minutes' delay. The messages he had received referred to articles or news items which for one reason or another it was thought necessary to alter, or as the official phrase had it, to rectify. Now this is interesting just on an AP level because we've dealt with all year how words are on a spectrum and you could have multiple words mean the same thing but they have different connotations, right? Alter and rectify, very different connotations, right? One's also stronger. Rectify is a much stronger word than alter. For example, it appeared from The Times of the 17th of March that Big Brother, in his speech of the previous day, had predicted that the South Indian Front would remain quiet, but that a Eurasian offensive would shortly be launched in North Africa. As it happened, the Eurasian Higher Command had launched its offensive in South India and left North Africa alone. It was therefore necessary to rewrite a paragraph of Big Brother's speech in such a way as to make him predict the thing that had actually happened. So there we have it. We have our answer as to why this is so important to get rid of evidence of things that are wrong, and especially this last markup that needs to be changed, is you have to go back and rewrite a speech that was already given to people to make it seem like Big Brother actually predicted the right thing. So that would be like today if our government went back and altered all of President Trump's old speeches and only the government had media access, and that was how we were getting our news, not through other news sources. And they were altering Trump's speech to say that he predicted coronavirus and he predicted any type of recession, and just changing the facts of what he actually said to make it appear smarter than he actually was at the time. So that's very similar to what's happening here. So I'm going to end it here so that you guys have enough room to kind of do your own think aloud, but it's a good start. You know, to pay attention to what's happening here with the misinformation and the rectifying of Big Brother's speeches and all of that. We learned about the speak right and more about Winston's job that he's doing right now. So continue on with your think aloud, and I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say.